following is brought to you by loudspeak.com.
Hello and welcome to the HardTyres podcast. You're watching a little video promo of me and Stuart discussing some of the pre-season issues. We're doing a little video special. This is not how it's normally done, but we thought we'd try it out because, you know, it might be interesting. At the moment, we're in the process of getting our 4 hosts sorted for the year. We've nearly ascertained it. We'll let you know as soon as we have. But until then, here's a little treat for you. So check us out on loudspeak.com if you haven't already done, and follow us on Twitter at HardTyres. What have you made?
We have Facebook now, don't forget.
Oh yes, we do have Facebook. Thank you for reminding me. Follow us at facebook.com/HardTyres. Thank goodness for my co-host. Right, so yeah, let's get on with the discussion. Lewis Hamilton, he's topped the time sheet today. He's not expecting a good season. So what did you make of how he did today?
Personally, I don't really see much out of it. When he set the time, the weather was better conditions than it was at the end of the day, and as we saw, that time was set in the morning. When you look at times later in the day, they sort of maintain sort of the 140s and sort of mid 140s. So I really don't see it of any importance, if I'm completely honest, because when you look at the other times from the day, the next person off of that was Button, who was 0.351 seconds off, and I think it's just a case of tit for tat. No one's really sure who's in charge at the moment, and the weather just got worse, so we don't really know who's who. Yeah.
Where? Well, we've had 8 different people top the timesheets as well, so it's kind of like, you know, it's anyone's game. It hasn't told us anything so far. And Lewis Hamilton, certainly in the interviews, he wasn't getting too ahead of himself, was he? He was quite sort of keeping it down and, you know. What exactly did he say?
I think it was Ted Kravitz who was interviewing him earlier, and Hamilton just came out with just saying that he wasn't looking to get into the high points, but it looks like they're hoping to get into the top 10. But the car's not particularly fast over one lap, but it is still a fast car, and I think the problem is they're still looking for the downforce, which has always been their main issue.
Yeah.
And once they sort that out, I think that's when we'll start seeing a better Lewis.
Sounds kind of like that's where Mercedes were last season, to be honest. I mean, they weren't at the top of the pack, but they were one of the high rolling midfield, you know, teams that managed to get a race win.
I mean, but that was at the start of the season, wasn't it? It was towards the end of the season they started dropping off, and I somehow wonder if that was kind of an instinctive idea to think, right, let's just stop development for this year. Obviously, bring some more development in, but slow it down and more concentrate on this year.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm now surprised they're actually talking it down a bit. And then we have conflicting reports with Rosberg saying he's really happy with the car. And I think the problem is it probably is a better car than before, so that's why we've got Rosberg saying that actually it is a better car. But at the same time, Lewis is used to an even better car than that, so what he's doing is coming down. So I think it has got improvements, but at the same time, it's nowhere near the McLaren.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, I think, actually. Lewis Hamilton's probably used to a lot more, you know, development happening, and it's a back step for him now, and certainly it's not likely that he's going to be winning the title this year. But we have got a pretty exciting title race on the cards, especially given how close teams are at the moment. I think Andrew Benson released a blog today saying, you know, this is really tight, we can't, you know, predict it, and I guess the third test is going to tell us a little bit more. But who do you see as the front runners for the title race this year? I guess obviously Vettel's up there for his 4th title.
I think Vettel, you've got to say, is going to be up there. Not that I necessarily would want him up there, because it's kind of getting back to those Schumacher years where it's almost complete dominance. The first time that he won, I liked it when he won that year because no one expected him to win. But the dominance has come after. Fun?
Sorry, even up to the last race, I was going to say, they didn't expect him, so it was quite exciting.
Yeah, I think, but it was close that he was likely to win it. And I just hope now that the teams are a lot closer, and I think the testing, if it tells us anything, is telling us that the cars are bunching up. So from that, to be honest, I'm edging my bets on Kimi this year.
Kimi, fair enough.
I think there's a lot of people saying that it's going to be Button's year this year, and the problem I have with that is that he always has downforce issues, or he can't get his right set up, and he has these sort of random moments where he can't get the car right. And
yeah,
seems to be having those troubles again in the testing, which is fair enough because it is testing. But if we get to the stage at Melbourne and sort of maybe Malaysia and kind of a few races after, it's got to the point that he's still struggling with setup. I just think he's going to be a write-off this year. And I think McLaren would have already tuned their car highly towards Hamilton towards the end of the year. And I think it is going to be still more of a Hamilton car than a Button car. So I think Button's going to shine more towards the end of the season once the car is more tailored towards him. But that's why I think Kimi's going to be good this year, because Kimi's in a car that I think is looking incredibly fast. But then you could say, well, Grosjean's got just as good chance as him, but I think Grosjean still may need to learn from some of his mistakes last year. Yeah. Whereas Kimi, he knows what he's doing. He's a cool driver. Everyone likes him, and I think he's got a chance to just nab it at the end of the year. I think that's where it's going to lie.
It's funny when we talk about Button and you say he does have these troubles with his car. Even in 2009 when he did win the championship, it was the first 7 races he was on top of his form, and then the car wasn't quite as good, and Barrichello started to kind of have the advantage. So it's true. I think Button always struggles unless the car is just right for him. And also with Vettel, I think you've captured something as well that a lot of F1 fans would agree with, in that we're bored. We're bored of Vettel winning. It was quite good last year, in fairness to him, because it was a big title fight between him and Alonso. But I think a lot of people would say they wanted Alonso to win, just because it seemed that year he was driving out of his skin in a Ferrari that, I know you say the Ferrari wasn't probably as bad as people made out. I think that was what you used to say. But
I did say that.
Yeah, but I think I think most people would still say that Alonso is probably
a bit of lag. But yeah, I still maintain that car was a lot better than they were making it out to be.
What about this season? Do you think Alonso's going to be on top, or?
He probably will be, and I'm sure I'll be fed up with it by the end of the season if he is. But no, I do think he will be up there. But then it depends on this Ferrari again and where the other teams are. Because I think that Lotus has definitely joined the pack of the 3 front runners in this testing, and I think that's going to be where the difference is. Who's going to take points from whose car's going to fail, whose car is going to work. And I think the problem is that the Red Bull is going to work this year quite well. And even past this year onto the next season, I think Red Bull will still have dominance because of the Renault engine, and I think they're doing so well is because of this Renault engine. And I think what the engine is playing a huge part in who's going to do better this year. I think Hamilton was saying earlier as well, it's the car's lacking a lot of downforce, but the engine is excellent. And I think that's what's going to be the main issue this year, is who can find the loopholes in the regulations and who's got the better engine, or who's got the more reliable engine. And I think that's what's going to come down to deciding who's the winner this year.
Yeah,
so and imagine. I can't remember what year it was. One of the years, all the cars were really close in qualifying. All the cars were within a second of each other. I think it was year Hamilton won.
2008. Yeah, no, it was very close. There was a lot of winners that year.
No, I think we could have a year like that. Maybe still some front runners, but I think the rest of the pack can close up, apart from probably Monsieur and Caterham, who are going to still remain at the back. But I guess we can get onto that later on. Yeah,
we'll talk about them in a bit, certainly. But I think that's true. I think it is often a game of catch-up, especially after the first few races and when the new packages come in inevitably for Spain and things like that. And Red Bull always seem to relish in that. They always seem to have an answer whenever they're struggling. They always come back, and that's going to be the thing that everyone else has to aspire to. They have to be there with them. And I think if Red Bull get ahead of everyone else in the development race, they're just not going to get caught up. I agree with you. I like Lotus. I think Lotus are great, and I think Kimi's great. I think Roman's a good driver as well, and as long as he stops crashing, he'll be a lot of fun to watch as well this season. I don't know if I could say Kimi Räikkönen's going to win the title. If he did it, it would have to be through his consistency, because that's what he did brilliantly last season. But I've got to say, I think you never know with Button. It could be his year, and I'd like to say that it might be.
I know there's quite a few pundits saying that, but it's going to be Button's year, and I think it all depends how much that McLaren's tailored towards him. If that McLaren's tailored towards him right now, he's going to do well. If that McLaren's still slightly towards Hamilton, and they've been developing it on the assumption Hamilton was going to stay, I think that's the key. It depends how much it's Button's car. If it's Button's car, he will fly. If it's not Button's car, it's going to be another season where he's all right, but he's not great. And you're about to run out of power, aren't you?
The other thing
I didn't
I think
anticipate this.
technical difficulties you get on. I'll keep talking anyway. The other thing is, now that Hamilton's gone, obviously they can push it towards Jensen. But also in the knowledge, I think that Sergio Perez, who's come into the team, I think he's a very similar driver to Jensen because he can. You can't have this in the podcast. Whereas one of the hosts is running around in front of the camera trying to find the charger. This isn't going to work. But I'll carry on talking anyway. So Sergio Perez. I think he's very similar to Jensen Button in that they both look after their tyres. They're both very smooth drivers. And Perez can be aggressive when he needs to be as well. He tried to overtake Alonso in Malaysia. You with us?
Yes, we're okay. Yes.
Good. So I think Jensen's in a good place now that he is with a teammate who will appreciate his, car as well. So what's your thoughts on Sergio Perez?
Sergio, I think he's a Massa, if I'm perfectly honest. He was.
Off.
He had. What did he do? Because Massa, he was terrible at the start of last year, and basically the reasons he was terrible is because he didn't have that contract signed, and he was worried about that.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened with Perez is that he was amazing at the start of the year. And everyone thought, he's going to be a great choice for McLaren. But I think what's happened is since he signed that McLaren deal, he's been worried that he has to live up to expectations. And that's been getting the better of him during sort of the last half of the season. So I think it's almost a reverse of what happened with Massa. Massa was desperate to get a race on Ferrari, so he was sort of lacking. Whereas Perez, he's managed to get that deal signed, but he's worried that he might now not live up to expectations. So I think that's been playing on his mind. So I imagine we're not going to see much of him, and we shouldn't expect too much of him in the first sort of 5 or 6 races. But I think the second half of the season, once he settles in, once he's ready, once he knows his race engineers, that's when he's going to be good. And I think that's what we've got to wait for.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you there. I think you can't expect him to start winning races straight away. It takes a long time, especially to get used to driving, a top car. But I don't think you can doubt his potential either. I mean, he does have a very strong way with his car, and he's very good with his tyres. In qualifying, he tends to always be up on, Q3, I should say. So I think it's a good choice for McLaren, and I think he will do well. I think you're right, though. You can't expect too much from him straight away. He's not going to be Lewis Hamilton and winning races off the back of.
I think he's a safe choice.
Yeah.
When you look at the rest of the field they could have had, I think he's probably the best person they could go for because he's young. And the way that they can test him this year, if he's not good, well, they can get rid of him at the end of the year and bring someone in for the new 2014 rules.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to play out. I think it's just he's got to just forget the rest of the world, which is going to be pretty much impossible. But if he can do that, I think he's going to be brilliant this year.